Hi, I'm host Eric. I was talking to people here with Taylor, and I want to talk a little bit about metacognition because I read that thing that Eric, trans person Eric, directed me to yesterday. I mean, not metacognition, meta-rationality, and it said it establishes. First of all, I'm very skeptical of shit like this. It gives you levels to achieve, right? Like level 3, level 4, level 5, stages of moral development or stages of rationality or whatever. I'm skeptical of getting black belts for metacognitive shit in general, but this was pretty interesting. It says stage 3 of adulthood reason developing or rationality developing is monistic, which is to say it doesn't tolerate contradictions, or it does tolerate contradictions, and then stage and it doesn't really challenge them, and it may not even be aware the contradictions are there. Stage 4 is dualistic in the sense that it's what we consider rationality normally. It's sort of a it doesn't tolerate contradictions, and then stage 5, what they call meta-rational, once again tolerates contradictions, but has some, but it's not unlike stage 3. It's not for the purpose of affirming specific things over other things, but rather it's more of a process oriented approach to reason. So I mean that struck me because the other thing it said is that people who are meta rational don't disagree with each other, and it's one way you can identify them. It's not because they necessarily agree on everything. It's that there's no point in disagreeing. Like there's no point in you and me arguing, right? I don't feel like there is. I, I mean, we have to find something to argue about first of all. But if we did, I don't think either of us would ever at any point actually be like, you know, are you making faces? Yeah, I see your faces.
Have
Uh,
you typed her yet?
what's that?
Have you typed her yet? Did you come to a conclusion?
She's awfully little. Let me see.
I
What's your name again? What's your name?
talking to you.
Jordan.
Huh? Fingers in mouth? Is this what your name is?
Jordan.
Jordan. Okay. Um, how how much do you like having your room orderly, organized?
I don't know.
You don't know. Do you naturally put stuff away when you're done playing with it, or you just leave it where it is?
Just a little bit.
Me too. Um, it's really hard to say when they're this young. I mean, the thing is, okay. Let me ask you this: do you understand the difference between actually and basically? Those two words.
What?
Do you know the word actually? Actually and basically?
I don't know what that means.
Two
Okay.
words. He says them all the time.
Actually, I'm going to blah 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 blah. Basically, I'm going to blah 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 blah. Find out the extent to which she understands the difference between those two words, because I suspect that for kids, the distinguishing between subtle meanings of words like that is something that is a good cue for NS, but it's difficult with kids because all kids, no matter how what they are going to not understand that distinction at a certain age, and then all kids will probably going to understand it at a certain age. So it's really a matter of figuring out how much she's currently engaged mentally in drawing those kind of distinctions. If she's drawing those kind of distinctions meaningfully right now in terms of like similar adverbs and shit like that, then I would say she's probably you'd be looking at an NT type, or probably like
Uh,
one
no,
of
hold
a
on.
quadruped.
More just as the father of an ENTP daughter.
Right. Well, she's got that same look about her, right? I mean, it's. I hate to go with the physiological cues though, because I can't help but sort of believe in them. I think that there are physiological similarities between ENTPs that I've noticed, and INTPs sometimes too. But that could just be my confirmation bias or something. I don't really know.
I think that we move. I think that we sometimes stop in positions that most other people keep moving right through.
Okay, there's that for sure. Okay, that
Oh,
the you're right. That's like how we're positioning our body, though. I sit in all kinds of fucking weird ways. And I'm like, why am I sitting like that? And but and she's super squirmy, right? She's squirmy.
get your finger out of your mouth.
Are you squirmy, Jordan?
No.
You're not squirmy. You look pretty squirmy.
Contrary.
But I am when I'm asleep.
You're squirmy when you're asleep. Do you kick a lot when you're sleeping?
Yeah. When I did it at one time, every time she turned around, I smacked her when I was asleep. And the next day when I stayed the night with her, she had this much face of in there.
Oh yeah, that story is so familiar to me. I used to find myself when Delilah and I used to sleep together, and she was littler. I'd find myself on one little shred of the edge of the bed, and Delilah would be arms all out like this, and taking up all the rest of the space. Because the other problem was Delilah was always wanting to roll up on me, like get close to me and push up against me, and I was always like, "Hey, it's hot. Go over there a little bit," But when they're sleeping, when my Delilah was sleeping anyway, she would, without knowing she was doing it, would just immediately start going over to you again. So, I don't know. I can say with the NHP Delilah, she was that stuff, the physical stuff you're talking about, like weird positions, all sitting weird ways. She was that kind of a sleeper. She's kicking all over the place all the time. She looked like you. She had that like ready to be captivated by something intriguing expression on your face. The sort of thing they put in advertisements with children in them to make them look like they're the magic of Disney kind of facial expression, right? I mean, it's because I don't know why. It just is. I don't know if that's type thing or not. I wish I had like 7 kids, all different. I wish I had 16 children, one of each type. That would be so helpful.
And we can also agree then, I noticed in passing that other people, when you're asleep, are just hot.
Yeah, that's all. That's all they are.
Like a little ball of sun.
Right? Yeah, I know. And no matter how wonderful and warm it is to cuddle and read a story before bed or something, as soon as it's time to go to sleep, it's not nurture time anymore. It's you stay over there time.
You try sleeping with an ISFP sometime.
I mean, I always slept on the couch a lot. Either Candace or I would move to the couch. Neither of us. Yeah, that was one good thing about Candace. She didn't like the heat either. She didn't like it either. So, what are your thoughts about this meta-rationality notion that it's possible to identify individuals who are quote-unquote meta-rational? Is it a real distinction, or is it just some people are saying, see, I'm so much smarter than you, I got a separate category?
I kind of stopped listening and wrote it off once you explained that there were categories of,
I know. But I that's my inclination too.
My answer was going to be, I don't know, because I stopped listening because I wrote it off too early. But maybe I didn't write it off too early, I don't know.
Well, I mean, the idea being there has to be some explanation for why it is that discourse plays out the way it does. So, if I'm debating, okay, when I was debating Hami, it felt very different than debating not host Mark. I would say that not host Mark is somebody who the taxonomy is a reasonable distinction to make. Like you can explain not host Mark as a rationalist who has refused to jettison his monist level 3 kind of reasoning, and so he's trying to force the thing he wants to keep, which is non-rational, to be acceptable to him because he's in the rationalist stage. So he's got to proclaim that his non-rational truths are rational truths and justify them thusly.
I think it was a guilt thing, and that was my impression. I didn't think that he could
Guilt?
agree with rational argument without being blasphemous.
Uh. Well, see, why would he think that you have to maintain that it's the rationally consistent position in order to believe?
I think it was a confusion of definitions. I think that rationally consistent wasn't looked at as separate from right or true.
So that's why I would say he has, in fact, internalized the value of rationalism as his primary. Like, he considered himself God-focused. Probably he'd say that's my main thing. But his main thing is actually rationality, because otherwise he wouldn't feel the need to make God adhere to those standards. It would be the other way around.
Well, I think his main thing was moral of rightness. I think that he probably left that battering, got signed off, and went, whew, I got a lot of brownie points from that one. You did really fucking good.
You think he finished that battering and went straight into the hot oil? No? You think he got straight out of that battering and thought, aha, I won? Or what?
No, I don't know that he necessarily felt like he won. I think that he felt like he did his duty. And his duty was to defend God. We, by saying that it was unnatural or illogical, were automatically in the position of attacking God, and he defended God. And it wasn't about rational at all. It was just about standing up for God. Yeah,
I mean, he was making rational arguments. He wasn't. It's not like he was saying, no. There's no. You could argue. You could be religious and argue it the other direction, and you say, you have to have some sort of personal experience to believe, but once you do, you'll believe, or something like. There's lots of different ways you can defend God besides rationality.
Well, that was the medium we were using.
Okay, but the thing is, okay, well, fair enough. But even then, there are ways in which you can defend him rationally better that don't require you to meet burdens you can't meet, you know? But I guess the problem was he was claiming that it ought to be used to determine public policy.
Yeah, that was a huge problem.
That was the issue, really. All right. So
I didn't feel like he had a strong stance or a strong position. I just felt like he felt unable to move off of it. At least Hami, if when we're talking about the economy with Hami, you could kind of take a step back and take a breath and make a 20-minute video in the kitchen and return to the topic at hand, and at least come back and start from a similar starting point. I didn't feel like with Not Host Mark we ever were able to even start on the same base.
Well, I think the reason is because he was trying to. He wasn't, and I think that's the distinction that's being made by the people who claim that meta-rationalism is a distinction worth making. Anyway, is that the meta-rationalist finds ways to accommodate contradictions that don't require that individual to insist on maintaining positions in the face of contradictions.
Where did these come from?
It was kind of hard to find anything about it because if you just Google meta-rationalism, it doesn't really pop up very well. But famous person Eric, sent me a link the other day, and that's where it came from. And I read about it, and it struck me as, first of all, they say things like, we need a bridge to allow rationalists to access the meta-rationalist framework, which does tolerate contradictions, but there needs to be some way in which rationalists can understand that it's not arbitrary and it's not irrational, or it might be, but it's intentionally so. So I mean, I don't know how much meat there is to be made here, because unavoidably we're going to end up talking out the issue using the methodologies of reason. So either they work or they don't, if you really are tolerating contradictions, then the whole point of meta-rationality ultimately would be just to establish where the limits of reason are and where the beginning of non-reason is, and why you would choose to execute a non-reasonable metric or something like that, I guess.
Like something outside of human comprehension.
Well, I mean, I would like to think that my
You're giving yourself scoliosis for her. You don't need to.
Okay, thank you for letting me know. I appreciate it. I'm just saying that, like, my position on behavioral faith, right, as a behavior to execute to expand possible frameworks through which you can look at a given moment, or to allow more magical frameworks. That this makes sense in a way that is, I guess, justified through utilitarian justification, saying, well, it's useful to you, so you go ahead and do it. Somebody would, I guess, dispute that by saying, well, it's useful to you, perhaps personally, but one would argue, why is it more useful in any given situation than the reasoned conclusion? Aren't you just enabling bad conclusion making by engaging in that process? What do you think about that notion? Is it possible to engage in faith-based behaviors and have it produce more rational outcomes while through less rational methodologies?
Yeah, it's possible. I don't have a good example of it, for sure. Weird shit happens. The unintended consequences are often greater than the intended.
Right. Do you engage in any non-rational behaviors or beliefs?
Behaviors all the time. For someone who's got such high TI, I'm pretty fucking sporadic.
Right.
Beliefs, probably a lot less.
It's interesting because, I mean, I think most of us go about our days doing stuff that's either rational in process or rational in motivation, but almost never both.
Explain.
Well, like right now we're engaged in a process of reasoning,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not exactly rationally motivated in the sense, at least it's not practically motivated or pragmatically motivated, so that we aren't
For
doing
me,
this to solve.
I think we probably have a
That's a
little bit
happy
more.
coincidence. I mean, no, I don't expect anybody to believe this, but it is totally a happy coincidence that this is useful for me. It's not. That's not its purpose. It's never been purpose for that reason. It's been purpose so I can talk to people, because I want to talk to people all the time. That's why.
We're really good at finding happy coincidences.
Yeah, happy coincidences are great.
Uh-huh. And they're everywhere if you know how to look for them.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's that. And see, I got there through magical thinking. I think you got there some other way. You figured out how to find the killing birds with one stone thing through, probably not through God or whatever. Not that God is responsible for me making choices that work out. It's just like that thing that I had to do to quit drinking enabled me to go, oh, you just got to kind of see how the magic fits together, and you go, oh, happy day, look at that. That one fit too? You know, I never understood that before. But how did you figure it out?
Figure out what?
Happy coincidences. Happy coincidences worldview.
Well, I didn't know that it's a worldview. I just thought it was like a lack of narrow-mindedness, because
So you just gave all the credit to yourself. Well, I'm just a badass, Eric. I mean, you know, what am I going to tell you?
I was looking for my MBTI results. I was going to show you my badass on paper. Oh well.
Well, I think that's why people with high NE, and you're more TI heavy than me, but the high NE types.
Do you see that? There we go. A little bit. Ooh.
Well, I think the big line is TI.
That's just each letter. E, N, T.
Oh. Okay.
So there's a big fat P.
Well,
But yeah, that is.
I'm prone to thinking that somebody's got to be setting this up externally. Like I'm not actually asserting that. I'm just saying a lot of shit just seems to fall into place in ways that if you allow yourself to think about it as intended and pre-planned or something, then it falls right into that slot. But I think that the NI types, people who have NI in the, I think it's fine to do that kind of thinking if you have NE in the dominant slot, because you're never going to get stuck in it. But if you've got NI in the fourth slot, for example, NI people in the fourth slot are prone to thinking that they are God, and that or they're God's friend, like EJRND. So it's important to have intuition fairly high up, or else you can go a little crazy with your truths. That's what I think. Where are my cigarettes? Here they are. Okay, well, let's stop this video. I see we've got various people in the room, and let's see what else we have to talk about. Thanks for watching Talking to Finnish People.